Howdy, welcome back to more Space Engineers. And today, we're going to get some base building done. But first, let's go over the connector situation behind me and why I added so many wind turbines. And why that placement is optimal. Alright, so, first things first, we're going to go over this. And this is not the best way to set up this situation for a raising and lowering connection. It is the simplest. What I've got here is I've got the advanced rotor, same as we had on the other one, and I've turned it so that it raises up this end of the connector to match my rover. Now, there's a few things you need to do when you set this up. Let's go into the control panel here. Look at the rotor, and you can see that in it, I've rotor locked it where it's at right now because this is where I'm going to want it for quite some time. I've also figured out where the lower limit and upper limit of the rotor are, because the rotor has actually got degree measurements in it. You can see right now it's at 341 degrees. And I've got it stopped so it can't go past 355. So that works. That means that this cannot slam into my deck on either side. So if I were to disconnect my rover and change the velocity, the speed that the rotor's turning, it would have a hard stop when it reaches 185 if I'm going negative velocity, or 355 when I'm going positive velocity. It's a really good, easy setup, and you can just kind of tweak it to where you want it. Really simple and easy by changing the velocity on it slowly and then rotor locking it once you get it to where you want it to be, then changing the velocity to 0, because you don't want to have it set for a velocity, a speed, while you're trying to keep your vehicle parked, because it will pick up your vehicle and slam it on the ground on the other side. Or worse. I've seen it do far worse. So yeah, just remember that when you're setting this up, and you should be fine. There are other ways to do this that are better, and I've been told that they are better, but this one is simpler. And I figured simple was probably the way to go. I'm not going to show it right now because I don't want to swap into creative, but maybe in another video, if people want to see it, I'll explain the different parking situations and different ways to get this accomplished all on its own. Alright, so we're in a creative world, even though I didn't want to go to a creative world, because the wind turbines actually require more of an explainer than I can give you using the turbine setup that we have at the base. So, we're sitting here, and this is a setup of nothing but optimal wind turbines. If you look in the terminal, all of them will show optimal. You can see the red one is getting 91% of its 400 kilowatt hard-coded limit. The yellow one is getting 98% of its hard-coded limit. And the blue one is getting 90% of its hard-coded limit. The green one, well, that's the champ of the show. It's getting 108%, sitting out there by itself. Now that is optimal. That is the best setup you're going to get, is that green one over there. The yellow one, pretty good. Yeah, not going to lie, that's an A. But the blue and the red, you're going to want to try to avoid some of that. Now, the reason that this works as well as it does is because these wind turbines have a few things that they check for in order to determine how much power they're going to give you. One, how many blocks are close by radially around their axis, and it checks out in a pancake shape. 4 blocks, you can see it over on the blue one there. It's showing the exact pancake shape. 4 blocks out, 3 blocks high, a little bit above, a little bit below, it checks. And it also checks to see just how enclosed it is. How many total blocks are around it. or how many empty blocks are around it. So it's doing pretty good, even though it's completely sealed off from the top, which is why it's down at 90%, because it is sealed off from the top. And that's the other thing. It does not like to be enclosed. The other thing that you have to watch out for is radially in a sphere, a ball all the way around it, you're going to want to go 9 blocks out. You can see there I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 before I get to the ground. That is by design. And that is the optimum height that I've found. 9 blocks away from the ground, away from any voxels in that sphere, you will be good. You can go as low as 8. Sometimes you can get away with 7. But I found 9 is pretty much the sweet spot. So this is working pretty well. Although the ground clearance, I need to make you aware, the ground clearance is critical. You need to make sure you're at least 8 blocks away from the ground, or as high away from any voxels as you can get. And the reason for that is voxels give it a much larger hit. This is the exact same setup. It's just closer to the ground. And you can see we've pretty much cut our power production in half by moving it down towards the ground. Or 20%, anywhere from 30% to 50%, we've cut this down. It is ridiculously bad how much we've cut this down by being closer to the voxels. So avoid getting close to the voxels. Now, hopefully I showed you the regions and highlighted the regions that you actually need to be careful about watching. And hopefully you understand. But because they don't really care about having blocks in front around them too much, this right here is fine, having these two touch. And that ensures that there's nothing within 4 blocks of the rest of them. In fact, it ensures there's nothing within 5 blocks of the rest of them. What we're going to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 10 blocks, 8 blocks between each tower. You wind up having these 2 wind turbines touching at the tips, but that's fine. Now, you'd think all the green ones there would be perfectly clear, good to go, no problems. And for the most part, they are. And you'd think the 2 white ones would be getting more of a hit, but they're not. The only 2 that are clear, actually clear, are the 2 on the top. And of course, my dog's going to decide that he needs to wander around and sniff the floor, so you're going to hear him walking. The 2 on the top, you can see they're listed there as wind turbine top and wind turbine top. They're getting 108%, whereas all the rest of them are getting 101%. So all of them are very optimal. And I've found this to be the most space efficient way of getting power. I would be happy to be corrected if that's the case. But for me, this is the best and most optimum setup to get wind turbines functioning. You're going to wind up averaging somewhere 103% power production, 103% power production. And I think that's a win. So, if you think you got something better, please post a link to it in the comment section, or DM me on Twitter, or at me on Twitter, whatever, and I'll take a look at it, because I would look forward to seeing something better. So, I think that's it for the explainer of the wind turbines. If you have any other questions, leave them down in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them. Anyways, back to the rest of the show. All right, we're back, and I have waited for the next day as it was getting pretty late. So now, the sun's just come over the mountain. We've got light to see. Now, let's get started. I have this room here, which is going to be a completely airtight room as part of the base. So I need to add a vent, and I think the best place to add it is going to be right here. So we're going to add a vent right here, and we're just going to use the full block air vent. I don't think that's a DLC block. So we'll add it right there, weld it up. All right, and now, because this is a guide series, dang it, rain. Why does it have to rain? All right, so because this is a guide series and I'm showing you how to build a base, not just for the Earth-like planet, I'm going to add something that we don't need. And we don't need it because we're on the Earth-like planet. That something is an airlock. And on Earth, you don't need it. You do not need an airlock on the Earth. But an airlock can be a very simple structure built into your base. You can go as simple as one door, and I like to use these doors for the airlocks. One door, and then another door behind it, so you just don't lose very much oxygen. I prefer to do a space between them for the simple airlock, and then a vent right between those. So we're going to pop a vent right here, and we're just going to pop it right in there. And we're going to set this to depressurize. Now it's going to be actively trying to pull all the air out of that 3-block space that is 2 doors and this center block. So you get to be able to walk through and lose as little oxygen as possible in the process. We're not going to go into the high-tech things you can do with an airlock to make it even better, more efficient, because you don't need that for most bases. And because we've got this, we're going to have to find a place to fit an O2 tank in the base. Which is fine. We've got plenty of room to add that. So I'm going to get these welded up, and then I'll show you how you want to close this in and make it a functional airlock. As you can see, we've got the 2 doors, we've got the vent that's all welded up, and that is good. Now, the thing to remember is this is our outer wall right here where I'm standing, right in line with this door. So we don't need to worry about putting anything out there yet. We're going to get to that when we start to actually shell the base in. But right here, we do need to close this in. We're going to start by just putting a steel plate there. And a steel plate there. Sorry, a light armor panel. And there. You don't need those extra ones, but I like to kind of hide the door behind something. So we're going to hide the door behind these panels here. And for the side panel, we're not actually going to use one of these light armor panels. We're going to put a window here. And I don't think I have any windows on my bar yet. So let's add those in. We're just going to come in and we're going to type window. Actually, we're not even going to type window. You can scroll down here and you'll see all the window options. There's lots of really cool shapes to the windows. You can see this 1x1 flat window here underneath it. You've got 1x1 flat and the inverted in 1x1 flat. And then the sloped 1x1 flat. Then the 1x2. Again with the same different options. The 2x3, which also has a 3x3 window. There is no sloped version of the 3x3. And then the 1x1 face, which also has the 1x1 side. So this one is kind of shaped like the side of a pyramid. This one is shaped like the side of a ramp. And we're going to use some of these, but not all of them right now. And then you've got the 1x2 version of that. But the round windows, you've got a lot of choices in the round windows. And we're not going to go through all those. Those are really neat. You're going to want to play with all those shapes. Right now, we just need the 1x1 flat. We're going to add the 1x2, the 2x3. And that's probably all that we're going to use right now. And actually, let's see. Let me scroll back down. No, that is a DLC window, so I won't use the half windows here. All right, now let's grab some girders so I can place the window. There we go. Now, because this is an airlock, we want to be able to see in perfectly fine. So we want the outside of this window to be clear and the inside to be black. Because theoretically, you want the people inside the base to see who's coming in better than the people coming in can see them. At least in theory. Now we've got a nice functioning airlock that's all set up and ready to go. So now it's time to shell the base. And we have a few things that are predetermined for us by what we've laid out. One, the size of the base, and the height of the base. So one of the things you're going to want to figure out, and we've also determined that the corners are going to be solid blocks. But the front corners can be a little different, and I think I'm going to change up the front corners. And the reason I'm going to change it up is because adding more shapes to your build can make it a lot more interesting. I'm not sure how high I want that one yet, so I'm going to wait for that. And I'm going to put this corner in here as high as the one in the back, which is right here. I'm not positive how I want this to be shaped yet, but we'll figure that out as we go. As it sits right now, I may actually, in fact, I think I'm going to bring these up. Yeah, I'm going to leave them right there for now. Alright. Now, let's try and figure out what we're going to do for the roof on this, because this is going to determine what we do for the height on these corners. The roof shape. Now, I'm thinking that this is going to be one side, and that's going to be the factory side, and then we're going to have a lower portion that is this living quarters. Now, we've got just about any kind of slope we want to put on there. Do we want a slope? Do we want a shape? Do we want a flat roof? Flat roofs get boring. So I'm thinking we want a slope of some kind. And I'm kind of thinking that I want to do a slope that goes up at a 45, maybe 2 blocks, and then comes over at the 2x3, or sorry, the 1x2, the 1x2 slope. Kind of give it like half of a barn slope. That's what I'm thinking. So we're going to place that in, and we're going to see how we like that shape. Alright, so there we have the shape of how this roof is going to be shaped. I decided to keep the barn slope idea, but bring it down a little bit. So we have 1 block height on this outer wall over here, and the same height in the center. And I know that's not optimal for saving materials or saving space, but I think it's an interesting shape. And if you're going to spend time on something, it might as well be something you like looking at. So take your time, find a shape you like, and then go with that. Throw it in there. I'm going to carry this shape all the way back and see what I have to do to make it work with the base. So I'll be right back once I've got that in. Alright, we're back, and as you can see, I've carried that back. That shape has been carried all the way back. That will be our roof. And I've added a slope here. Oops, missed a block. So it's using all these angled pieces that you can come across. So you can see I've got this block right here, and these blocks right here and here. And then the 45-degree slopes all the way across the top. And I've used these light armor corner 2x1 shapes to fill in this area through here and maintain that slope coming off the front edge. I'm going to get this all welded up, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Alright, we're back, and we've got everything welded up on the ceiling. And you'll notice I got rid of this row in here. There is no slope continuing down in that spot, and that's because of the walls back there. It doesn't fit. And to be honest, the outside does not need to entirely match the inside as far as shape goes. We may change that up in there a little bit, but not much. Now, we got to try and make this front face look interesting in some way. And the best way I've found to do that is we're going to need a full block there. But the best way I've found to do that is to add recesses, either add recesses or add parts that jut out. I think recesses are going to fit better in this area here. So we're going to make this one big recessed 2x2 window right in that hole. Just like so. And we may change up this block here to be something else, just to add some texture and some detail. Or we may put a display there with like the name of the station or something, just to make some interesting texture on it. That makes it good to look at. There we go. I think that's an interesting shape to a base. That's my own personal opinion. You can feel free to disagree, and I hope that you may find something better to do. I mean, this is a creative game after all. Find something you like. Do what you like. But for me, I think this is the answer. Thought it was that one. No, it's 3. We want the 2x2 flat window, and we want it... I thought there was a 2x2 window. No, there's not. There's a 2x3 and a 3x3. My mistake. So we want the 1x2 flat windows, and we need to grab the resources for that. Be able to place them. And apparently I don't have any girders. Alright, now I can place them. We're just going to place those right there. Alright, and we'll get those welded up once we get all the components. But I think that adds a little bit of interest to it. Makes it kind of neat looking. In my opinion. Now we could have actually cut this corner down and put a... In fact, I think, now that I'm looking at it, I think I might do that. I think we're going to pull this out. One of the things we can do here is we can actually come in and we can put this block right here. And then this block. See how that turns out. That might be rather interesting. Not sure how I feel about that, but we're going to try it. I hold the opinion that I may change that later. Now we're going to put the 1x1 window there. All right. It doesn't seem to be actually building the stuff I wanted to build. Alright, so I'm happy with that. I'm real happy with that. Now we're over to the side. And the side is real simple. On the side, we're going to wind up putting a full block here. And a slope. Actually, no, we're going to put a slope right here. And we're going to put a slope over here. Yeah, we'll put a slope there. Because we can. Now, do I want that slope there or there? Because I'm thinking we're going to carry the same kind of design through. Let's see, that makes it 3. Alright, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and we'll put a slope there and right there. I think that'll make a nice, interesting looking side there. And then we'll come in and we'll drop the 1x2 windows like so. Once I have the stuff to build them. I don't have enough girders yet. Alright, I'm going to get these windows in and get this all welded up. And then we'll be on to the rest. Because we have to worry about the backside. I didn't like the way that looked, so I changed it up a little bit. I decided to put a 1x2 window laying down and just make it one recess. I think that looks a lot better. And we've got this all welded up over here. And this right here, now this one, it is the back of the base. And to be honest, we're going to be expanding this quite a bit. So I'm thinking that this is going to remain just as it is. This shape is not going to change. And this wall is just going to become solid because it's going to be an interior wall that separates us from the rest of the base. We're going to have to expand the factory out that way as we grow. So we're going to weld that up eventually, but right now we've got to try and make this look halfway decent. And I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to raise this up one more layer on both the front and the back. We're going to keep that corner slope there because it'll kind of tie the two halves of the building together when you're looking at it. And yeah, I think that'll be good. And right here, we're actually going to do this. And I'm thinking that rather than putting a slope on this one, I'm going to keep this a flat roofed, oops. Well, that's going to float there for a minute. I'm going to keep this a flat roof on here. And I think we're going to fill in that one. And we're going to fill in this one. And to add some interest to the shape, okay, good, that placed somewhere, it didn't just drop. Let's clean that up. Make it a mess. Don't want to make a mess. I think we're just going to do that. And then in here, we're actually going to use, if I can get it to work right, we're going to put this in to make it come out to a full block at the top. And then we're going to use these half slabs down here just to add some semi-interesting texture to it. So the build has some texture on the face, because having texture on the face makes it a little less bland, a little less of an eyesore, a little better to look at. At least that's what I've found. We may actually change these out to add some textures up and down by flipping these blocks back and forth and changing out half slabs, and just some interesting texture going down that wall. But I think for now that will be good. And we're going to do the same thing over here, except I think we're going to make it a little wider. Rather than doing one column, we're going to do 2 columns of the half slabs and a column of full blocks. 2 half slabs and a full block. And now we've got 3 left, so it's going to be an odd number, but that's okay. 2 half slabs and a full block. There we go. Alright, I'm going to complete those walls up and get them all welded, and we'll be right back to go over what the shape kind of turns out like. Alright, it's time for the big reveal. I've gone ahead and I changed things up just a little bit. I got rid of the slats going up the top and made it match what I changed on the side. I wanted to even it out, make it look a little bit less off, and I found that putting 4 of these narrow panels next to each other and one solid column up the center worked out pretty well. And then I changed it to slope up on the second to last block there, because that allowed me to make another change on the inside in here. Now I have this little passageway that actually goes all the way around here, and I can run through, except for here. But that's not a big deal. We can actually get around that by using these blocks. Oh, there we go. Right here. On both sides. If I can find the right block. Now, we can actually walk over this. But you just can't fall in. And we can fix that by adding a steel panel there, a light armor panel. But we need a roof. And for the roof, I'm thinking we're going to go super simple. I am thinking that we're just going to do this in all four corners. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go even simpler than that because I think it'll look good. Of course, my idea of good and my friends' ideas of good do not always agree. We're just going to use half slabs in here, and we're going to fill this entire area with them. And I think that will give us a nice look. And there we go. It's all welded up. Now let's step back and take a good look at what we've done. So now we've got a small factory area with like what looks like an office area built off to the side. And when we expand it back this way, I still got to weld up the back. Ignore that. Then it'll look like an L-shaped factory with a building built into the front. I think it'll look pretty good when it's done. Now it's time to light this thing up because it's dark in here. And it's daylight outside and it's dark in here. Why don't we fix that? Now this main room, easy. We can just come in here and anywhere on the ceiling we can place a light. And I'm thinking right there is a good spot for it. Now that's not going to provide much light right now. But if we look for the only light we have, you can actually come in, you can change the color of the light. You can change how round or how much the radius of the light. You can change the fall off. You can change the intensity. You can even change its offset. So the light center is now down towards the floor. We're not looking for that though. Yeah, you can play with the lights a lot, and you can see in the background there that the light's going to turn purple. We don't want a purple light. We don't want a yellow light. I do like my interior lights to be a little bit on the yellow side, but not super yellow. You can actually give them a blink, so that it should blink once every 1.7 seconds. We don't want to blink. You can change the blink offset. We don't want any of that blinking though. I like the softer yellow light on the interiors, so we're going to go with that. And we're probably going to bring that radius down a little bit. But we're also going to need a light in here. And I'm thinking that since this is such a small room, we're actually just going to use a small corner light. And we're probably going to do that in the room that will become a den, or I'm not sure what we're going to do with it yet. But we do actually have to figure out what to do with this wall, so I'll add this light later. Because right now, we need to worry about getting this tied in. And I'm kind of leaning towards changing this a little bit. I'm going to put full blocks through here. And instead of using half blocks along the top here, we're actually going to use the sloped 1x2 armor base, light armor base, along the top there. So we'll be using this block like so. I think that'll wind up looking a lot better than if we were to use the full block all the way down, and it allows us to have separate rooms, which I kind of want. Alright, there we go. I think that looks okay. I'm rather pleased with that. You can feel free to disagree with me in the comment section if you don't agree with me. And now, we need to do one more change here. And I'm thinking that right here, we're actually going to tear these out. And we're just going to put full blocks in here. We don't need them, but I think they're going to fill up the space nicely. Alright, so yeah, I think that looks good. This room is just perfectly square like it should be. And this room is perfectly square but a little tall. That's good. Now let's add some lights in there, and I'm still thinking the corner lights. And I'm thinking that they can go just right. Right there looks good. Now these corner lights actually have an offset too, and we're going to try and take advantage of that right now. So if we're coming in, we look at this corner light. We can actually change its radius to say 5. And its offset, if it's going the right direction, good, it is. The offset goes down in a straight line, either down or out, depending on how you place it. So now we've got a light that's coming from basically right here at the top of this door and shining 5 meters in a radius. So it lights this up kind of low light. Works out pretty good. We're going to do the same thing over here in this room. Alright, so we've got all the lighting done. We've got the base done. Now we can start working on actually building the interior and maybe getting some light in here. I gotta get rid of that block. Said I was gonna get rid of that block and then I never did. So we're gonna need to get some lighting in here as well. Other than that, pretty much done. We're also going to need a hydrogen tank. We'll worry about the hydrogen and oxygen tank in the next episode. For now, I think we're good. I think we have the base pretty much done. I think it looks interesting, and it's functional. That's pretty much the entire goal for this episode. So, come back next time, we'll figure out the hydrogen tank and the oxygen tank, and we will also have the interior decorating done. And I'll go over my design choices and why I chose what I chose, and maybe some of the other options that could have been available. And we will also probably start working on a flying ship. We won't finish it the next episode, but we'll at least be able to cover what the basics are to get started on building a flying ship. Until next time, see ya.